Have you ever found yourself struggling to have faith when fear seems so much easier? Today, let's explore the surprising truth about faith and discover its power to truly set us free. Let's begin. Have you ever thought of faith as something God commands, not just something we feel? In Matthew 23, verse 23, Jesus makes a striking statement, chastising the scribes and Pharisees for their hypocrisy. "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you tithe mint, dill, and cumin, and have neglected the weightier matters of the law, justice and mercy and faith." Rarely had I considered faith as a command of the law. I've often beaten myself up over my sins and shortcomings, feeling guilty for times when I've failed to love as I should. But when I reflected on Jesus' words, I realized something simple and startling. Faith is not just an abstract concept. It is a law we are called to obey. At its core, sin grows from unbelief, and unbelief breeds fear. Fear convinces us to take control, and control leads us away from love. How can we abandon the self-focus that leads us into sin without trusting that God is taking care of us? When we doubt His love and provision, we start believing we have to manage life on our own. We try to protect ourselves, ensure our happiness, and guard our safety. But all this striving pulls us away from the freedom God offers. This becomes the silent root of our self-interest. We may even think we're serving others, but under the surface, we're often asking, "What about me?" Quietly working to control the outcome in our favor. And this is not love. Love cannot grow from fear and self-preservation. So how do we break the cycle of fear, control, and sin? The answer is faith. Faith is the key that unlocks freedom. It is the surrender of control, the trust that God will care for us in every way we cannot. I see this in myself whenever I start obsessing over outcomes, worrying about how things will turn out, guarding my plans, gripping tighter instead of trusting God to provide. In those moments, I don't need to try harder to be selfless. I need to believe again that God is already taking care of me. When we surrender our will, desires, and expectations to Him, we find a joy that self-sufficiency could never give. Letting go of what we think life should be makes space for God to fill us with His peace, His contentment, and His love. And the irony? When we release our self-interest, God fills us with more than we ever expected. Instead of fear, we receive joy. Instead of striving, we find rest. Instead of guarding ourselves, we are free to love. But the more we hold on to our own will, the less room we leave for God to work. God fills empty vessels. This is the law of God, our faith. When we live by this law, it transforms us. What begins as simple surrender and letting go of the false belief that we must take care of ourselves eventually blossoms into a selfless love that mirrors the heart of God. As we walk by faith, we find ourselves able to love others freely, without the weight of fear or the need for control. We begin living with the peace and joy that only come from trusting God's plan. Let's empty ourselves of ourselves. Let's follow the law of God, a law that begins with faith and leads us all the way to love and peace. When we surrender, we find the very heart of God's will for us: freedom, peace, and joy. If today's devotion touched your heart, leave a comment or share a prayer request below. Let's support each other in prayer. And whenever you feel tempted to control the outcome or trapped in cycles of striving, remember that true freedom comes through surrendering in faith to God's care. May you walk today knowing that you are deeply loved,